A strike in Greece, protests in Kenya, and a stampede in Pakistan. Soaring food and energy prices have made life hard for people across the world. Data shows global inflation rose to nearly 9% last year, the highest for a quarter of a century.
But here in Taiwan, prices have, for the most part, stayed low. Inflation has never broken 3.6%. The question is, why?
Well, global inflationary pressures really surged after the start of the Russia-Ukraine war in February 2022.
After Russia invaded Ukraine, global energy prices soared as the US and its allies sanctioned Russia's economy.
We're banning all imports of Russian oil and gas and energy.
But in Taiwan, the shock was barely felt. The country does import nearly all its fossil fuel, but it didn't buy much from Russia. It's also been developing clean energy. More crucially, Taiwan's government froze electricity prices. In essence, it paid for the price rises itself.
Gasoline prices are very low in Taiwan. Electricity is very cheap. So the government is putting up with the extra cost of high energy prices.
The rate of inflation also depends a lot on how it's calculated.
The relative weight that has been assigned to the different items inside the CPI baskets has played a role.
Economists decide on an inflation figure by looking at the Consumer Price Index, or CPI. That's one number that captures how prices have changed over a year for things like food, housing, and transport. Different governments give those things different weights, depending on how much they think people spend on them.
So some of the differences between Taiwan's headline inflation rate and the US's, for example, are down to what products and services they focused on. And Taiwan's lower inflation might be more of a question of stats than reality. But there's a third factor.
I think what's important is that the starting point for inflation in Taiwan before the Russia-Ukraine war began was very low.
Taiwan's inflation rate has been well below the world average for decades, and mostly below other advanced economies too. Booming manufacturing in Asia as a whole has kept prices here low. But Taiwan's low inflation could also be a sign of deeper problems with the economy.
I wouldn't say this is a success, to be frank. Now it looks good, but one has to understand that the reasons why inflation is not there might eventually not be such good reasons.
Taiwan has low wages for a rich country. The minimum salary here is $870 a month. So instead of spending their money and boosting the economy, people save.
It is hard to think of any inflationary pressure if people need to save what they earn in, extra out of a good year.
Taiwan has dodged most of the world's steepest price rises by keeping a lid on energy costs. That saved consumers countless sums of money. But the same factors that keep inflation low, cheap electricity, low wages, an aging society, and weak demand, could spell trouble ahead. Damon and Staś Butler in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.